The next part is, as far as fringe benefits are concerned, we have looked at transfer of mobile assets. Now we are looking at value of traveling, touring, accommodation, or any other expenses paid for or borne by or reimbursed by the employer for any holiday availed by the employee. You very well know that only anything that is business expense should be borne by the employee, right? If anything is borne apart from the business expense, that should be generally there is an extra benefit that the employee is getting. Therefore, there is an element of taxability there for the employee, right? So if the company is bearing it, then there is a benefit the employee is getting. So what is the benefit? That means he is on a holiday, mind you. It's saying on a holiday, and the expenditures are availed by the and an expenditure is borne by the employer. In that case, what happens? Where such facility is maintained by the employer and not available uniformly for all employees. For example, if you go to Munnar, you may see Central Bank of India is having a holiday home, right? Now, if that holiday home is available across to all employees, irrespective, no, it is only for the top chief managers only. If it is across, then there is no problem. There will be no, it is the value. That means it is not available means there is a taxability. So available to entirely, it is not taxable. Suppose it's available only to chief managers or only to people above chief managers, then there will be a value of perquisite. What is the value of perquisite? Such facilities are offered by other agencies to the public. That means nearby similar facility, what is the cost? That will be taken as a benefit. Mind you, here you have to understand that if the facility is available to everybody across the company, it will not be taxed. But if it's only available to certain category of people, then there is a taxation. Similarly, where employees on an official tour and the expenses are incurred in respect of any member of his household accompanying him, naturally that amount of expenditure. For example, somebody is going to say Manali for a conference for the company, but because it is Manali, he's taking his wife, and the company is saying no problem, let her come, and we will bear the cost. There's no problem. Company is bearing it, but to the extent of that wife's expenditure for hotel, accommodation, everything, that will be value of perquisite for the employer because it's not official, right? Wife's expenditure cannot be taken as official. Similarly, where official tour is extended as a vacation, that means he's going to for a conference to Bali. And what happens? He's saying to the company, no, I will do one thing. Or company is saying, no problem, you stay for another 2 days, enjoy as a vacation, and then come back, we'll pay the expense. Even there, the value is limited to the expense incurred in relation to such extended period stay or this thing. So that means to the extent of the accommodation which is up to the conference, and post that if he is going to incur the cost for his stay for extended vacation, that will be a taxable value for him. Okay. Similarly, any other case where facility is given to the employee or any member of his household, a sum equal to the amount of expenditure incurred by the employer. Maybe it is not his wife, it may be his brother-in-law or somebody. Even if the company is bearing, that will be the value. But here one thing is there. However, in all the above cases, the amount determined above shall be reduced by the amount if anything is recovered from the employee. If he is paying back some amount, there is no taxation. Above rules shall not be applicable in any leave travel concern. Leave travel is separate. We have looked at it separately. Okay. This is more logical. I don't think there is any problem here. We can still apply logic here. Let us look at the next one. So the next one is relating to your value of free food. One sec. Yeah. So value of free food and teas, free food and non-alcoholic beverage, tea or snacks provided during office hours, nil. Free meals and non-alcoholic beverage during office hours in remote location, nil. Free food and all provided by the employer during office hours at office or business premises through paid vouchers which are not transferable and usable at eating joint, nil, provided is not more than 50 rupees. That means companies may provide, meals in the company itself, so that they don't have to go out and have food and all that. Or the company may provide that, what is it called, that vouchers are there, no? What is it called? Some vouchers they give, which can be redeemed at a nearby shop, a nearby hotel or something like that. So that type of vouchers, if it is given, that is also exempt. But if it is more than 50 per meal, then excess over 50 per meal will be taxable. Sudoku, I was talking about Sudoku vouchers and all. Sodexo, sorry. Sodexo. In any other case, actual amount of expenditure incurred by the employer is reduced by the amount, if any, paid by the employer recovered from the employee on sick pay. So, any other case apart from this, whatever is expenditure spent, less anything recovered will be taxable. Here, anything over 50 will be taxable. Now, in 3 above, expenditure in excess of 50 should only be treated as perquisite as reduced by recoveries from the employer. So, for the 3-1, this one. Let's move on. These are all simple concepts. It's very easy to remember, but in the exam, you have to remember all this. Otherwise, you'll not be able to write it properly. So some twisting will be there, and you should not get mixed up. What is the other one? Next is your relating to your gifts, and this is again the value of any gift or voucher or token in lieu of which gift may be received by the employee or any member of his household on ceremonial occasions or otherwise shall be a sum equal to the amount of such gift. So that if the company is giving some gift, say on the Diwali day they are giving, or some annual the foundation day. Suppose the company was founded on a particular day, on that day they are giving everyone a gold coin. Say 50 years of foundation day, they are giving a gold coin. This gold coin will be taxable, but if the value of the gift is below 5,000 in aggregate, perquisite will be taken as. Now the question is, there are 2 versions to it. Sorry, whatever is given in the material, you take it. That is it that anything over 5,000 only will be taxed, or if it crosses 5,000, entire amount will be taxed? Suppose the presentation is for 7,000 and it has crossed 5,000. So should 7,000 be taxed or 2,000 be taxed? Is that debatable point? You go by how the study material is given, accordingly you take a call. Okay, there can be 2 versions to it. I'm not getting into that. So you can check the material, the way it is given, you can take it. In the material that I use, they say anything over 5,000 will be taxed in Singhania's text, but in, I think, Manoharan's text, it's a different way. Anything only above 5,000 will be taxed. That's what is the view. So there are 2 views. So you can take the material view. What is in the study material? Now, expenses on credit card, where expenses including membership fees and annual fees are incurred by the employer or any member of his household which is charged to a credit card, including any add-on card provided by the employer or otherwise paid or reimbursed by the employer, and such expenses are incurred for any other purpose mentioned in 3, the amount expended. So basically, credit card is given by the employer. It is for whom? For him to use his personal payments. So any expense met by the employer on the credit card of the employee, what is he using for? Mainly for his personal purpose. And including an add-on card means one card can have 2 cards. In the sense, 2 people can use it in the same card. So that's why add-on card they are talking about. This is being paid by the employer. That means you don't worry, you spend anything in that card, we will reimburse it. That reimbursement will be taxed. That's what is the logic. It's all common sense. For the purpose other than mentioned 2 above. So that means anything for official purpose will not be taxed. Obviously, if he is using his personal card and it's being used for official purpose, for example, he's taking somebody out and paying through his credit card for business purpose, then it will not be taxed. That is what is number 2. So let us check this number 2 now. What is number 2 saying? We'll just check. Where such expense is wholly incurred, only and exclusively incurred for official purpose, nil. It's normal, because if the money is paid for official purpose, where is the question of taxability? Conditions. Complete details in respect of such expenditure is to be maintained by the employer. Employer gives a certificate for such expenditure to the effect the same has been incurred wholly and. Now, next one is similar to that, only thing it's a club membership. That means, Ramamamma Club and Trivandrum Club and so many other clubs are there where the employee can become a member. The payment or reimbursement by the employer or expenditure incurred, including the amount of periodical fees in a club by the employee or any member of his household, will be paid by the employer. Then that amount will be taxed as per CUSIP, because it's personal expenditure. He's going on a weekend with his family and having food, and that's being reimbursed by the company. Therefore, that amount will be taxed as per CUSIP. Where such expense is incurred only and exclusive or official purpose, naturally there is no thing, subject to certain conditions which is given above in G. That is these conditions. So, if you want to claim it as official, these details have to be kept. What for? What this thing like. So similar. Only that one is for credit card. This is for club membership. That's the difference. Car one will come to that little later. EF will come to that little later. Now I'll be looking at perquisites in the hands of specified employees. This is what we'll be looking at. Just give me a minute because it is getting cut so that we don't get caught in that. So I'll just stop it here for the time being. We'll again reconnect. Okay, we were looking at this part. So value of perquisite in respect of free supply of gas, electricity, water. So it says chart number 10. So we'll just look at chart number 10, then we'll come to this. Similarly, sweeper, gardener, etc. is there, that will come to that, and chart number education facility, chart number 11. So 10 and 11, we look at it and then come to this notes. Okay. Hope it is there. This is chart number 11. So what is it? Valuation of perquisite in respect of free supply of gas, electricity, and water for household consumption. What are the situations? Just look at it. Let us look at the thing, then it will be very easy for you to understand. It's nothing complicated, only that. Now, gas, electricity is gas, electricity, water are supplied from source owned by the employer without purchasing it from the outside. That means he is producing gas or electricity or whatever he is doing it. Mind you, this is possible because large companies, they do their own, they have got their own power supply because they don't depend on outside like KCV and all. It can get disconnected. No, so therefore they produce their own electricity or water or whatever they can do it. Second situation is where the gas, electricity or water is supplied from an outside agency And last one is where gas and electricity is paid or reimbursed by the employer. These are three situations. First one, they produce. Second one, they purchase. Third one, they are reimbursing the employee. Now, if the gas, electricity, water is used for official purpose, obviously there is no question of perquisite. All cases, it is not a perquisite. If it is exclusively used for personal purpose, then definitely there is a perquisite. What is the? How do you calculate if it's being produced? He is having a manufacturing cost of producing it. That will be the value of perquisite. How much number of units he has, consumed, multiplied by the manufacturing cost per unit will be the value of perquisite. When it is purchased from outside, what is the amount paid by the company for the purpose of this will be the value of perquisite. If it is again reimbursed, obviously what is the amount of reimbursed that will be there. If it is partly official, partly personal, therefore you have to take some proportionate part out of this two. What is the proportionate they have not told? You may have to keep a record of what is said. Based on the record, proportionate amount will be taken. Same here, proportionate part. How that proportion they have not told. Now here mind you, these two are, this one is only in the case of specified employees. What is the specified employee? You know that. One second. What is this? Who is a specified employee? You know that because those three categories. Most of the people, everybody is specified employee today. As I told you, 50,000 salary yearly is nothing. And all employees, this is case. But for this purpose of theory, we need to know that. So there's nothing difficult. Let's go forward. Chart number 12. Okay. Oh, one second. So again, three situations where the education is, institution is, this is for free or concessional education to any member of his household. So education institution itself is maintained by the employer. That is number one. Number two, where education facility of such member or employee or household is allowed in any education institution by reason of his being employment for that employer. Can you give me an example for this? The best example that I look at is if somebody is working in a central government post, then they have an automatic choice of KV, Kendra Vidyalaya. That's the best example that I can give. But some companies may have a tie up with another school where people in that area or in that working in a particular company will get admission there. Similarly, provision for a free or concessional education in any other case. That's what I'm saying. Now, what is the value of benefit? Very simple. Cost of education in a similar, because it's the same company, right? Similar institution or near facility. However, if education facility is provided to children of employee, any other member of is also not covered. Value of perquisite shall be nil, normally nil. But if the cost of education or value does not exceed, per child does not exceed 1,000 per month. If it is more than that, it will be taxable. So the entire cost will be exempt, provided it's below 1,000 per month. Similarly, for this one, also same, absolutely same, copy paste this one. So up to 1,000, it is exempt. Anything more than 1,000 will be taxable. Here, actual amount of expenditure incurred by the employer on this graph will be taxable. Any other. So here only there is an exemption. That means the company is himself maintaining, education institution, or where they are going for places like KV. However, in all the above cases, the amount is paid or recovered from the employee on account of the value of benefit computed above shall be reduced by the amount paid or recovered by the employee. So this is what is the, whatever recovery is there, that can be reduced. Whenever you are doing problem, please read the theory properly. These notes that I've given, please be thorough with it. Then it'll be easy for you to do the problems. So this one is the next one that will come up. So let us go back to the here. With the thing that we have already read, we have to read it. If gas, electricity, that chart is there. So if gas, electricity, water connection is in the name of the employee and the expense of this on the supplies are met by the employer, it is an obligation of the employee discharged by the employer, and this perquisite is taxable in the case of all employees. That's the difference. So that means this is taxable if it is the name of the employee met by the employer, it is taxable in the case of all employees. Other cases where it is in the name of the employer and he is paying it, then it is not taxable in all only in the case of specified employees. But as I told you, specified employees, everybody is coming under this, so it doesn't make a difference. Now let us look at, there is nothing free concession and education, nothing more. So it's very simple. Value of perquisite in respect of household servants, sweeper, gardener, watchman, personal attendant. What is the thing? The value shall be the actual cost to the employer. Whatever he is paying, actual cost in such case shall be the amount of salary paid or payable by the employer or any other person on his behalf for such services as reduced by the amount paid by the employee for such service. So some amount the employee is paying, then that part will not be a perquisite. The balance part will be a perquisite. Only there is an exception where the facility of the gardener is not a perquisite. Gardener here mentioning, but some cases gardener will not be there, where in case accommodation is owned by the employer, is provided to the employee, and the service of the gardener are also provided with the accommodation, the service of the gardener is not a perquisite in the hands of the employee. Why? I'll tell you why. For example, X is an employee. He is given an accommodation. Here is a gardener along. This is garden. He is a gardener. Now, after some time, X is moved into another accommodation like this, and a bigger accommodation. And he has got again a gardener. At that time, this gardener will not come here and be with him. He will stay with the accommodation. Suppose Y is now getting accommodated here. Now, gardener will be the gardener for Y. In such scenario, this gardener's fees will not be taxed in the hands of X because he is linked to the house. Therefore, at the time of calculation of rent-free accommodation, it is already taken care. It is not to be taxed separately. That is an exception to the general rule here. But if this gardener is such that the moment X moves to this house, this gardener will move here, then it becomes under this category. Otherwise, it will not come. So that is what is a meaning of this thing. Okay. Let's look at the next one. Tax on employment. Where, so here tax on employment, professional tax. A deduction of any sum paid by the SSE on account of tax on employment shall be allowed as a deduction under section 16(3). The deduction is allowed in the year in which tax is actually paid to the employee. Paid by the employee. Note, where professional tax is paid by the employer on behalf of the employee, it will be included in gross salary as perquisite because it's an obligation of the employee met by the employer. There will be tax first, then he will claim the deduction. So that means be careful. There just need to understand that in a problem they have said tax has been paid by the employer, this tax. Whose obligation it is? It's the obligation of the employee. Suppose he is paying it, he will get it as a deduction. But if that amount is not paid by the employee, but paid by the employer, whose obligation it is? It's the obligation of the employee, met by the employer. Therefore, that amount which the employer is paying will get taxed first as part of gross salary. Then he will get it as a deduction again. So, plus, minus, both will happen. If it is paid by the employer. That is the only thing you need to know here, nothing else. Again, when you do the problem, it will all fall in place. So now let us move on. One more topic and I will stop because this recognized crowd in front. There's the other one, we have got motor car only after this. That needs a little bit of explanation. So Venus, can you read this a little loudly? One
PF
minute, one minute. Let me just explain what is PF. So it's an employee's benefit that is, available to the employer is bearing some part of it. For example, let me take an example. Suppose an employee is being paid 10,000 as salary. Just an example. The employer will deduct some employee share from the employee, some say 1,000 rupees as PF, and he will pay only 9,000. Therefore, the entry that needs to be passed in the books of the employer is salary debit 10,000, mind you, this is salary, to employees PF 1,000, to bank 9,000. This is what is going out to the bank. This is being deducted from the employee and kept as a liability in the books of the employer. Now, on the due date, what the employer will do, he will add on, say, approximately another 1,000, and he will pay like this: employer's contribution debit 1,000. This employee contribution, which is a liability, that is being debited. So this is a liability, this is an expense. Employees contribution debit 1,000. So earlier you credited this. This will get nullified. With this, it will become 0. To bank 2,000. That means the employee is paying 1,000. Employer is paying 1,000. The 2,000 will get credited to the employee's PF account. Who is maintaining? There are different types of PF which we are looking at. But this is the structure of the PF scheme. So you have to understand that. Now, for a person like me, I am not employed anywhere. Therefore, this employee's contribution will not be there. I cannot go to the normal EPF scheme. I have something called public provident scheme, where I will only deposit my share only directly. There is no employer share here. There is no deduction. I just pay. So the single-sided one. So those cases where people are self-employed, for them that is there. A normal employee can, on top of this, also contribute to public provident fund. That's an additional amount he can contribute. So let us now look at the different schemes that are there available, so that you understand, because taxability is according to that. Ines, read it.
is a treatment of PF.
Yeah.
PF scheme is a welfare scheme for the benefit of the employees. Under this scheme, certain sum is deducted by the employer from.
Maria, are you able to hear?
Yes, sir.
Can
Yes,
you hear
sir.
what Venus is saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay, little loudly, Venus.
Employer from the employee's salary as his contribution to the PF every month. Employer also contributes a certain percentage of the salary of the employee to the PF. These contributions are deposited or invested. The interest amount on these investments is also credited to the PF account of the employees. The balance thus keeps accumulating year after year. At the time of retirement or resignation, the accumulated amount is given to the employee if certain conditions are satisfied. It is to be noted that contribution made by the employee is out of their income and hence not taxable. Contribution made by the employer is income deemed to be received by the employee, though it is not immediately made available to him. Hence it is taxable with certain exemption limits. Interest credited to PF account of the employee is also an income of the employee over and above his salary income. Hence it is taxable with certain exemption limits.
Okay. Maria, read the next one.
Kinds of PF. Statutory PF. This fund is set up under PF Act 1925. This fund is mainly meant for government employees, semi-government employees, universities, educational institutions affiliated to the universities. Recognized Provident Fund. Recognized PF is a scheme to which PF Act 1952 applies. As per PF Act 1952, any person who employs 20 or more employees after 3 years of its establishment is under an obligation to register himself under the Act. The establishment has two choices: They may join the government scheme set up by the PF Commissioner under the PF Act 1952, or they may start a PF scheme in their own organization and get approval of the PF Commissioner. The first scheme is automatically recognized by the Commissioner of Income Tax. The second scheme has to be approved specifically. Exemptions under the PF scheme can be availed only if it is approved by the Commissioner of Income Tax. Unrecognized Provident Fund. Any scheme started by the employer on employees, although approved by the Commissioner of PF but not approved by the CIT, is called an unrecognized PF. Public PF. This is a scheme which is covered under Public PF Act 1968. Any member of the public, whether in employment or may contribute or not, may contribute to this fund. It is a scheme where there is only assessee's own contribution. The minimum contribution to this fund is rupees 500 and maximum rupees 1,50,000 per year. Contribution made to the scheme along with interest are payable after 15 years unless extended. The rate of interest at present under the scheme is 8% per annum.
Okay. Now chart number 12. So let us look at chart number 12. Yeah, this is chart number 12. So these four categories, now you got some idea about what are these things. Statutory Provident Fund, Recognized Provident Fund, Unrecognized Provident Fund, Public Provident Fund. What are the shares that you got? Employees contribution. I told you 1,000 rupees is the employees contribution. Now that obviously is available as a deduction under ATC. ATC we'll look at it later. That's a deduction that you can claim under chapter 6A. Now next one is employees contribution, another 1,000 rupees that we talked about. Fully exempt for SPF. RPF, it is exempt up to 12% of salary. Amount in excess of 12% is to be included as part of gross salary. Now, URPF is exempt, not exempt, but at the same time, not taxable every year. For taxability, we look at point number, point number 4 below. PPF, in the case, there is no question of employees' contribution because there is only assessee's contribution. Interest on PF, that is interest on PF, there will be two categories for both of this, but in generally we are looking at as far as SPF, so that means interest on PF will come on both of this. Fully exempt. RPF is exempt up to 9% interest. I think it is 9%. Still it is 9.5%. Interest in excess of 9.5% will be taxable as salary. This is again not exempt, but also not taxable every year. We'll look at the note down. PPF fully exempt. That's why it is a very good scheme which I always suggest to my clients. Now comes repayment. That means when finally the money is being taken out, either on account of retirement or resignation or termination. 3 cases situations can then. If it is an SPF, it is fully exempt. If it's an RPF, exempt subject to certain conditions. We look at note number 2. And if it's for this, accumulated employees contribution is not taxable. Employees contribution, he is only contributed. How can it be taxable? Accumulated employees contribution plus interest on employees contribution till date is taxable as profit in lieu of salary. Interest on employees contribution till date, employees. So don't get mixed up with this. These are, one is employees contribution, one is employees contribution. So interest can be on both parts. The one relating to the employer is taxed under profit in lieu of salary, including his contribution. But employees interest, employee share is not taxable. Employees interest will be taxable as income from other sources. As far as PPF is concerned, when you withdraw the money, it is fully exempt. So therefore, it is very, very good scheme. Now let us look at what are this thing. Employees share. The employee share fully exempt. That is, we are talking about this star. Interest on employee share taxed under other sources. Employee share and interest on employee share both are taxed under this. Okay, that covers this part. There's some notes I think. Here are some notes. So what are the notes? Employees' contribution and interest on PF in the case of unrecognized provident not taxable in the year of contribution or credit of interest. However, when the lump sum amount is received, by the employee, then it is become. That is what we just now saw. That is this chart. The chart, the bottom part. This part. This is what they are talking about in theory part. This thing. Okay. Next, lump sum amount received from the RPF is exempt if an employee is rendered for at least 5 years of continuous service with the employer. However, if on leaving service before 5 years, the employee gets PF accumulation transferred to another RPF, then the amount transferred would not be taxable. If the employee receives a lump sum amount after rendering a total of 5 years of service, the lump sum amount will be exempt. Also, exemption will be available in cases where the employee has not completed 5 years of service due to reason beyond his control, for example, ill health or physical disability or continuance of the business of the employer. Now, if the above conditions for exemption of lump sum amount received from RPF are not satisfied, the income of employee will be assessed as if the contribution is URPF. Salary for this purpose is for the purpose of, because somewhere it's salary meaning is required, therefore it's basic salary. DA is included in terms of employment, so provided commission is as a percentage of turnover. Somewhere we have seen for HRA and all the same meaning of salary is continuing. So we will stop here. Again, there is let me see if there is any problem relating to this that you can there, then you can just write down. I'll tell you, I'll message you if there is any problem. Now this one, 46.P1, this part of it, you just write. Okay, that's the only problem. So we will close here, and next class we'll finish whatever is left of salary. I think motor vehicles is only there. Okay. Okay then, tomorrow costing. Anyway, have a nice day, and we'll continue. Okay.
Thank you, sir.